You want to move on?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. To the UNESCO
Yes.
withdrawal. I know you send out a statement and it's quite clear, but I just wanted to ask you to understand better. Is the reason basically is what you call that it has always had some sort of bias against Israel or the membership of the Palestinians, or are there other reasons? Are there other reasons? Because you cite, the organization and so on.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So stepping back about 20 years or so, Saeed, you and I were teenagers then, right? Yeah. As many of you know, Congress passed a law. And as a part of that law, any UN entity that accepts Palestinians as a member state, the U.S. government cannot provide funding for it. The U.S. government has looked at that. This has been a long time that the U.S. government, that predates this Trump administration, has been taking a look at it. It's been a long and deliberative process. That decision was finally made. A couple things went into that decision making. One of them was a look at the cost-benefit analysis. As many of you know, we were in arrears to the tune of $550 million or so. And so the question is, do we want to pay that money? And do we want to pay more money going forward when there's actually a law that says the UN entity that accepts Palestinians as a member state can no longer receive U.S. funding? So that's part of it, financially, okay? Second part of it is we'd like to see overall UN reform. And as a part of that, I'll just include this in that. Ambassador Nikki Haley has talked a lot about the importance of reform at the United Nations and in entities such as this. We'd like to see the politics kept out of it. And we see with this anti-Israel bias that's long documented on the part of UNESCO that that needs to come to an end. So the United States made the decision after a long deliberative process to pull out.
But why is, things that are of historical value, things that like in Hebron and in Jericho and places like this that are thousands of years old, why would that be an anti-bias Israel for UNESCO to recognize us as a site or a place worthy of recognition?
We have seen some political statements of certain sorts made on the part of UNESCO. If UNESCO wants to get back and wants to reform itself and get back to a place where they're truly promoting culture and education and all of that, perhaps we could take another look at this. But we haven't seen that taking place. Israel, my understanding, has also made the decision, but I'll refer you to the Israeli government on that, to do the very same thing. And let me just remind you, Bashar al-Assad from Syria was one of the people who was on the Human Rights Committee at UNESCO. I mean, does that seem to make a whole lot of sense to you? Probably not.
Well, I will stick with heritage, but moving forward, will the United States withdraw from every UN organization that the Palestinians can become a member
I'm not
of?
aware of that. I only have the information on UNESCO today. Anything else on that?
You're probably aware the Bush administration, W. Bush, when it rejoined UNESCO in 2003, I think it was, they made the case that having a seat at the table, being present in the debate and discussion, would actually be beneficial to Israel and would tamp down some of the anti-Israel bias that you're talking about here. Does this administration doesn't
Look, all I can say
belief?
is that this administration and the previous administration had been taking a long look at whether or not the United States should remain a member of UNESCO, and they made the determination that we were going to pull out.
Well, in fact,
previous administrations, I just can't comment on.
But the immediate previous administration was actually looking at ways to work around the congressional mandate on funding.
I understand.
That is something.
But I just want to be clear that this review of sorts has been underway for quite some time.
Is it fair to say that this current administration is no longer trying to find a way to work around the congressional prohibition on funding?
Well, I think we've made our determination, and that is to pull out of UNESCO at this time.
Right. So, in other words, they're never going to get their money unless that you owe, unless they reform and you rejoin.
I'll leave it at that. Okay.